There we go. Psychotech Live. Woo! So we're at a different time of day today because we can see that Daniel is like lit up by natural light.
Yes, this is not late at night for me.
This is the joys of being on the other side of the world to each other. Are you familiar with the Earth sandwich?
Oh, we're two people on the other side of the world put bread on the floor, and then
Yes.
Earth has become a sandwich.
Yes. We're not quite directly on the other side of the world, but it would be pretty cool if we were. In fact, I don't even know if there's land on the direct opposite side of either of us. That was the puzzle of the Earth sandwich, working out where there was land.
The two places on the opposite of the world where there would be land.
Yeah. That was the early internet, or like Z Frank in the 90s. Who I wonder what happened to him. I haven't heard of him in a while.
I don't know who Z Frank is.
Huh?
Z Frank?
Z Frank. He's the guy who made the Earth sandwich competition first time to encourage people to create an Earth sandwich. He was sort of a comedian on the internet, and then I don't know what happened to him. He was a brilliant man before his time and quite misunderstood, I think, by the culture he was embedded in.
Yeah, I don't know.
He had a TED talk many years ago, which depicted him very honestly and confused, I would say. Anyway, that was Z Frank.
He was the president of BuzzFeed Motion Pictures.
Later, yes. He did lots of things. He was like a comedian of sorts.
Chief Research and Development Officer for BuzzFeed. Well, that's interesting.
Well, they picked him because he was already notorious by that time. But he was doing stuff before then, which made him an interesting.
I didn't know BuzzFeed actually did research.
It's
hard to tell from their articles.
Oh, yeah, that's. I'm not going to defend. we do have a information problem on the internet.
Yeah, I was just reading an article. Substack just put out a thing. They've been getting pressured. I think I don't really know why they put it up, but it seems like they got pressured into like censoring people, and they said no, because we don't have a misinformation problem. We have a trust problem, is what they're saying.
Say more.
I'm gonna pull it up. Society has a trust problem. More censorship will only make it worse. It's interesting. I pulled up this email because I was going to unsubscribe, and then it caught my eye and I started reading it, and I was like, oh, actually, I kind of like this. So we got Larson. Yeah, so they're saying that efforts to silence people who doubt the efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines won't get us very far. So that they're talking to, like, I guess it's talking about Facebook. If you shut down Facebook, it's not going to make it go away. It'll just move. And Larson says we have a trust problem. And then Substack is saying this ring true to us. We're facing growing pressure to censor content published on Substack. I don't know what they're referring to.
Could be anything. They took a lot of blogs.
Yeah, probably something happened on the internet and I missed it.
Well, this happens that platforms turn into big enough to be attacked. That, it's happened to YouTube, Twitter, all sorts of places.
Yeah. So they got some content guideline, and then censorship is last resort, is what they're saying. And yeah, I think that kind of stuff is good. Like, I think they're exactly right that it's not a misinformation, it's a trust. Because like everybody always says things, but it's and especially now with the COVID stuff, it's very much like you can't trust, like like it's very hard to trust any of these sources because like a bunch of them lied on purpose.
Many times over in the rush of there are a few problems here. One is that science doesn't move very quickly. And so in the early stages of a pandemic, no one knew anything. And so a desperate desire, let me go for a personal story. So I was signed up to an event, which got, it was probably in February of 2020. And it got canceled, March of 2020, something like very early on, got canceled and then got rescheduled and then got canceled and then got rescheduled. And I found myself desperately wanting to like email the organizers and say, when will the event be? But actually, the poor damn organizer had no idea either. They were just responding to COVID and like trying to schedule it and then trying to cancel it. But there was this, I felt this frustration in me that it wasn't just that the event was canceled. It was like a lack of certainty and a lack of control around like, I don't mind if it's today or in 6 months, just tell me that it will be.
Or that it won't be.
Or that it would be. I could have been, it would be.
So I've actually been on the other side.
And I didn't actually send that annoying email because it wouldn't have done anything because the poor organizer didn't know any better. But I had this drive to like complain in that way. And I that all of science, all of society went, science, tell us what this virus is. And science says, give me a couple years to and that's not very good for society. It's not good enough for us.
Yeah. I don't know. So
and that's one of the difficulties of science, or
but the thing is that you can so like science didn't know, and now we know a lot more. But they still lied, and as soon as someone lies, it doesn't matter if they have science or not, because you can't trust them because you don't know what you don't know that there's actually science. And I think a bunch of the big organizations just lied at the beginning and kept lying, and they justified their lies, and they wound up being incorrect for a lot of the stuff. And their plans and tactics were wrong, and they lied. So there's no trust for these organizations. And so if
and rightly so. And rightly so.
And rightly so, yeah. And so, like, to me, if like you got people doing conspiracy theories or doing official stuff, like that's kind of the same thing at this point. I mean, like, obviously they're different sides, I guess. Like, they always have to hate each other for some reason, but
the conspiratorial folk believe themselves to have a monopoly on the truth, and the mainstream society also believes itself to have a monopoly on the truth. And
like the big organizations. I wouldn't want to say mainstream society because I don't think it's not mainstream society.
It's large organized groups of humans, which could be companies or governments or other organized groups.
Well, I don't even know that the companies necessarily.
Even religions. Even religions thinks they have monopoly on the truth at times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there is a big red flag, I think, when people have a monopoly on truth, but like sometimes they do, right? Like that's the other problem, is that like if there are scientists doing stuff in a lab and they figure it out and then they publish their findings, then like they have the monopoly on truth, kind of, but they also don't, because they've published it and now everybody has it, and that's the point of science. And so if you're not, this is the thing, like if someone's claiming the science, you need to be able to see the evidence. But on the other hand, like learning all the evidence stuff is also really hard. Like learning how to suss out like
time. Well, maybe historically in science, going back 100 years, you could still, if you were an ordinary human who was kind of bored, you could try and replicate random scientific experiments.
Yeah.
Even a couple hundred years ago, you could drop an object from a tall tower, and everyone could show up to watch the object fall and judge and complain about it and argue about whether it landed at the same time. Was it like Galileo?
Yeah, I think they did a Leaning Tower at Pisa.
They did a heavy object and a light object, and they dropped them, and to
And
see whether the heavy object would land earlier than the lighter object. And
yeah,
so,
I mean, people do this stuff on YouTube all the time.
yeah,
They do it with like the flat Earth stuff, or the round Earth people, I guess they're called.
right. But science moved out of the easily experimentable domain into, well, you got to build a large hadron collider in order to do some of the complex physics we do now. You need gene sequences to do some of genetics. You can still look at things under a microscope, but we've done we know what a cell is.
Yeah. Wait, what's your point?
So it's harder to personally verify science than it was 100 years ago.
I disagree. I disagree with that 100%. I think there are cutting edge stuff that's very hard to identify, to deal with. And then there's things that are like large statistical bodies, like collecting that information is very difficult. But those things just didn't, like, they're hard to verify because they're hard to do. And those things just didn't exist 100 years ago. But like a lot of the things that were cutting edge 100 years ago that actually turn out to be true, you can verify. You can do a lot of experiments. There's a bunch of like YouTubers that do this. Like Cody's Lab does this all the time, where he's like, "Oh, this is what it says in the chemistry book, but is this true?" And then he does the whole experiments. Like he'll do all the experiments, and he'll usually get it mostly right. and then like you got evidence. Like he did one with the Earth curvature using just like a camera or something. Right, like the Earth curvature, like a lot of people do that stuff because it's actually quite easy. Like you can't do it in your bedroom, but you can do it.
You can climb up a mountain and sort of look.
Yeah, or a river, or or like I guess you can do it in your like Google Maps and stuff maybe. It depends.
If you didn't trust Google Maps, you wouldn't want to do it through your computer. You want to go see for your own eyes, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it depends. It depends on what you're trying to actually.
There's sort of, I think I was talking about this last episode. There's a debate between individually observable reality and collectively trustable reality. So if I can see the curve of the Earth, or I can stand up a mountain and say, well, the Earth doesn't look really curved to me, then...
Well, he uses trigonometry, right? Like, you're not necessarily just doing a naked eye look at is this curved or not.
Yeah, you gotta. Well, you can see a little bit with the naked eye, but with a bit of trigonometry, you get a bit better.
Yeah, and then they use also there's a bunch of people that just send stuff into space, because one guy he sent a garlic bread into space and then ate it.
How did he get it back? Or depends how far he got it into space, I guess.
Yeah, he said he used like the definition of space that was like the easiest to get to.
Right. Okay.
And he used a balloon, like a helium balloon or something.
Right.
And
impressive that it didn't come down and land in the ocean or something.
No, they had a whole thing. There's like a company that will send things into space for you, and they use GPS trackers, and I don't know how they do it, but they have a system for doing it. They have to like go into someone's field and landed at someone's field, and they went and got it and opened it up, and then they ate it.
That's one expensive garlic bread.
Yeah, I don't think it was that much even.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, there's like a lot of stuff. There's a lot of ways to verify science that are just like under $1,000.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, getting into space is not that hard. It's getting into orbit is what's hard.
Right.
And being controlled and like having humans up there and things like that.
Yeah, humans are. If you scale the spaceship down, the thickness of the walls are equivalent to like a can of soft drink. Like humans are protected by a can of soft drink equivalent, like thin, like if you imagine a human size there, very you haven't got much between you and death. But we do this
Yeah.
everywhere. We live in freezing conditions, we live in boiling hot conditions, and we find a way. Human does this incredibly delicate balance between elements, between forces, between
Yeah.
if you don't breathe for just a couple minutes, you're dead. If you don't eat for just a couple of weeks, you're dead. If you get a little bit too hot, you're dead. If you get a little bit too cold, you're dead.
Well, a little bit in like absolute senses. Like I think
a little bit too hot is probably like if your
like
body
just a couple thousand degrees.
no, if your body gets I apologize for using Celsius units because I'm an Australian.
No, we don't see Celsius. It's only Americans.
Canadians do too, but other people might not. So in Australian terms, the human body is 36 degrees, usually around there, plus or minus 2, depending on who you argue
Well,
with.
we use Fahrenheit for that one. It's 98.7.
Right. So if you get 10, 15 degrees above that, your body gets that hot, your enzymes will denature and
yeah.
That's not very
like your brain will cook. Yeah. That's internal temperature. Yeah, if your homeostasis is off. Yes. It's even, I think it's 105, you start to like risk brain damage, I think.
Right. So if you get there for just a couple minutes.
Like, what is that, 7 degrees or something?
Yeah.
Because you when you get fever, you start hallucinating and stuff. And you can get fevers at like 100 and I don't know, 100, maybe 101, 102.
Right.
Something like that. And you start getting fevers and hallucinating. But that's what it's designed for. It's designed to cook the bacteria, to create a hostile environment for it.
Mm-hmm. If we get like a little bit too salty, and I don't know the numbers on that one.
Yeah, I don't know either. But I know, you can not enough salt, not enough water. But these are like they're very small amounts, but that's inside your body or the home, like where your norm's at. But we can be in environments that are much more.
Oh yeah. Well, you just put on a coat and you can walk through a snowstorm.
Yeah.
So it's our internal temperature that we really need to, or the qualities of our internal landscape that we need to preserve. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, trust. I want to go in the direction of talking about trust. So from a psychotechnologies perspective,
what is trust? So we'd be defining
what is trust?
Defining it, I guess, or like, because like this is it's very easy to say, oh, not information. It's not misinformation, it's trust. But what does that mean? Trust.
Right. So for trust is, well, one definition that pops to mind is something like a confidence in information being true. Like, so if I say the sky is blue, I believe that information. I trust that is the case. Like, it's not just I've said information, it's that I have some belief or confidence that the information is true. Could say the sky is green.
What does that mean that you believe it's true? For me, like, I'm using the rational, so I would bet on it. Essentially.
Right. Be willing to bet on the information.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
That would be like, what odds I'm willing to take is how confident I am in my trust.
Mm-hmm.
So if I say I will take any odds, then I have full trust in that.
Yeah, dangerous things. Yep, but doable.
Yeah, because you really should never take you should never take any odds. Like, you should never do just 100% odds, like 100 to nothing or something. Because then if you're wrong about that once, that's like infinite value. You've lost all the points. You've lost all credibility. And so I think that's to me is trust is like, this is true and I'm going to act as if it's true, and I'm willing to stake things on that.
Right. But so from a psychotechnologies perspective, there's internal trust and external trust. And internal trust is when information comes out of my system, and that may be, so starting from the ground, when a physical sensation happens, I believe that a physical sensation happened, right? That should be pretty obvious, except that sometimes I will feel what feels like a mosquito on my leg, and there won't actually be a mosquito there.
Yeah, I get that with my phone vibrating, like sometimes my
right.
phone vibrates. Yeah,
that's interesting. What's going on in both of those cases? Now, in the mosquito case, I'm sitting in a place where it's getting to the evening and the mosquitoes are coming out, and then I thought I heard or saw a mosquito, or I felt a movement, and then I got wrong what the movement was, or I felt a tingle near on my leg, and I looked, and there was actually no mosquito. So it is possible to, so wait, on the physical level, I certainly felt the tingle, right? That's a good start. On the emotional level, and we do this to ourselves, sometimes we gaslight ourselves. We're like, but I have no reason to be angry. Why am I angry? I don't trust that the emotion is actually there. And then on the cognitive level, when I make the conclusion, oh, that physical sensation means that there's a mosquito nearby, sometimes it doesn't, but I've jumped to that conclusion. So my cognitive can be a lot more wrong than the lower levels. That interpretation can be a lot more incorrect.
Yeah, I think they can both be. Like, I find that they're different systems, and they're prone to different kinds of errors. But yeah, like sometimes, but yeah, you want to, like, for me, I'm always wanting to, if I can have them collaborate, corroborate with each other, then I have a lot more trust in what's going on.
Right. So that's self-trust, right? So I trust myself, and being a growing human who's been at it for a while now, I've built a level of trust with my system where I'm pretty used to knowing what's true and what's not. And if my system says so, then I'm like, well, this is what I believe because it came out of me. And I can dig into why, but I do believe, in fact, when it says these things, that there's a good reason there. And that's taken a while to get to.
Yeah, what was that like for you to get to that point where you could trust that you believe that? You could trust in your own beliefs.
I think initial trust takes a moment, and then you trust yourself, and then longer calibration takes, like, you should trust yourself within a bounds of uncertainty, and then longer calibration for truthfulness takes a bit more time to bring about. So there's a tangent here. I can smell it. There's a tangent here of something like direct knowing or direct access to, right? And here's the thing. The proposal is that I can directly know in the world certain things. Now, if you do a cave shadows problem or a Chinese room problem, we cannot actually directly know things, and that's a really big problem because we'll never know what's true, right? And however, if you do enough meditating, you probably have some confidence that there is a direct knowing of reality. If I want to know what experience is, what sensation is, I can go and look and see. And direct knowing is very important because I need direct knowing in order to trust myself. When I see things in reality, either everything is made up and I'll never really know what's true, or I can have direct knowing the things that I see are actually the real things, or at least some not completely convoluted representation of reality. There's some stability to the representation, and because I have direct knowing, then I can trust that that is the shape of reality. This is tricky because philosophy has argued about whether direct knowing is a thing, whether clearly we are locked in our own mental experience. Our consciousness is really more of a consciousness, but whether we can truly know reality or not is a real problem. Because we only know, I only see my visual field, I don't actually see the photons, which now, due to science, we know that there are photons, but
you kind of are, like your eyes really see the photons, or else it wouldn't be able to propagate signals.
Right, so do those signals truthfully represent some form of reality outside of my consciousness? And the answer is hopefully yes.
Yeah, there's definitely like the Descartes stuff is coming up, is how do I know what reality is?
Mm-hmm.
Because my senses are always my senses are always possible to be tricked.
Mm-hmm.
And then his answer was something like, well, God wouldn't do that. And I hate that answer. I hated it at the time. I think I was religious and I hated that answer.
Right.
And I'm probably like misremembering or butchering it, but that is how I remember it.
Right.
And yeah, I think for me it's like I have direct experience. I have direct knowledge of my experience. Like I'm experiencing it, and that experience is experiencing itself. So
right.
Whatever. Like, is it all aliens? Are we living in the Matrix? Like, is this a simulation? Like, it doesn't matter, I think.
Well, if I have direct knowledge of my experience, then when evidence of those things come to me, I will have to change my perspective. But right now, I haven't actually seen with my own eyes the evidence of the Matrix. And so I'm limited in what I think. I also haven't seen evidence of ghosts. And
I don't think that works. Let's pick the simulation argument, because
right.
This one is more simulations exist than non-simulations. Therefore, odds are that we're in a simulation.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's like it doesn't matter, right? Because we're not in a simulation in the sense that atoms are real or something, right? At least in that sense, like it's probably we would be characters within this video game, and so atoms would be like the voxels of the simulation. And fine, like who cares, right? Like if the universe is contained in something, or the universe is free floating, what's the difference to me? The background radiation is all random anyway, right? Until someone figures out that it's not. So like who cares, right? It doesn't actually affect my life. I'd love to know the answer. I think that'd be cool, but as far as I can tell, it doesn't actually affect my life or my decisions.
To the extent that, right, it affects your decisions or it changes the way that you live your life. It doesn't make a difference. So
there's a certain, I think this is to me where like that faith comes in, where it's, I don't know the answer to this, but I'm still going to do this because it's the right thing to do, because the answer feels like it should have an impact on me, but technically speaking, it shouldn't. And there's no, and from a science perspective, there's no experiment I can do to differentiate these two. So
unless we can consider, maybe in the future we'll find an experiment, but right now, given that we can't, here we are stuck in, well, I guess that detail doesn't particularly matter. And so to me, that detail doesn't matter. Then the frame, like I often live as though I am in a simulation and there's somebody watching me, because I like that frame. Like it works nice with me. Like I'm the TV show. There's someone eating watching my every move, and I'm like famous or something. This is great.
Yeah, so I have done that. I don't love that one, but I like the one where I'm an AI. So this is like one of those fantasies that I kind of have a lot, where I'm an AI and some entity built the universe so that they could see how an AI would react to the situation and like try to derive principles and all the things that I like to do. That's the things that they want me to do. And like, what are the principles? What would be good philosophy? What would be a good way to live life and approach and all that stuff?
Mhm.
And whatever it is, like I'm in the reality and that's how I'm doing things. And so this is what I think I should do.
Mm.
And that's my answer. And it doesn't mean that I'm right. It doesn't mean other people aren't better at it than I am. But whatever, I'm still a data point and that's still valid.
Mhm. Right.
And this is the important lesson, I think, for everyone.
So there's an axiom of direct knowing, and then there's an axiom of trust, that I trust that I can directly know. And then I can look at reality and make useful prediction because I can directly know, or directly know to a certain extent that predictions are then possible.
Yeah, there's no real trust, I think, with direct knowing, because you just know it. You don't need to trust it.
But the belief that you can directly know is still a belief.
Yeah, but I can translate that belief down to direct knowing. So like I'm experiencing direct knowing now. So I can formulate the belief if we're going to start talking philosophy, or if you want to start.
There needs to be like a certainty that direct knowing is possible, which is testable through direct knowing, but can you test it without direct knowing?
Oh, like a zero knowledge transfer or information exchange.
So I tend to believe direct knowing is possible because I can look at reality and directly know, and therefore I have proven that direct knowledge is possible by looking at reality. But if I couldn't use that as looking at reality as evidence, how would I prove that direct knowing is possible? I don't think I can.
So you could still use statistical. You could use a statistical proof, right? This is how they do it with the no knowledge exchange. So in math, it's possible to prove that you know something without showing your work, essentially, like without
knowing what you know,
without revealing any other information. Zero knowledge proofs.
Interesting.
Yeah, I just watched the Wired. I think it was Wired or Vice, where an engineer, I guess, I don't know, or mathematician, I don't know, explained it on the 5 different levels. So it explains to the child, and then eventually I stopped watching when he tried to explain it to a PhD candidate or a postdoc or something. I don't really care that much. But yeah, you can prove, and then he gave examples as well. Where he did a couple of them where he had a safe, and they put a secret in the safe, and then he opened the safe without the person looking at it, took out the piece of paper and read the secret. So he's like, now you know that I know the combination, but you don't know what the combination is, and I haven't shown you that I can open it. I haven't shown you what the combination is or how I know it or anything like that. All I've shown you is the secret inside it.
Right. So fair enough. I see that. I take your point that it is possible to demonstrate direct knowing.
And crypto apparently uses this all the time to prove. So you can prove that you have, like he said, you can prove that you have 0.2 Bitcoins without sharing what your wallet is. So you're just proving that you have them, not anything else.
Right.
And so that you're kind of asking about that for direct knowledge.
Right. Yes. There's probably more here, but I won't dig into it. Direct knowledge, truth, right? So that's a internal. So then what I want is I want to be able to trust myself. When I have direct knowledge, I can go, oh, that's true. And then I can rely on that for various things in the world. But what I also want with trust is I want to be able to trust outwardly. Right? I want to be able to trust other people when they say stuff. This is in science, we stand on the shoulders of giants, right? And we do so because we can trust that the giants there of the past, these big scientific heads of the past, were right about what they did, right? And what we want is an ability to trust outwards. And the interesting thing I find here is that my ability to trust outwards is an internal thing as to whether I have it or I don't, right? And in order to have that one, I need an ability to trust. Either I can cede power to an external, be like, well, it's science, it must know. But we know how dangerous that can be, because often science doesn't know and it changes its mind a lot.
Yeah, and science isn't a person, right? It's
Right.
a methodology.
Right.
People like
but there's a problem here that if I just trusted science, then occasionally I would be believing one thing and then very quickly having to change to another thing. So it's sort of dangerous to believe exactly what science says without like having some space. And probably no one does, but everyone sort of like knows that science takes a bit of time and sometimes disproves things. Right.
Yeah.
For example, the science of which diets are the right diets. It sort of gets argued about a lot, and eventually we will come up with the answer. But right now, I don't know if the science is settled yet. As far as I know, it's not.
Well, probably the best diet hasn't been invented yet, would be my guess.
Right. And potentially, given that we can observe reality and directly know reality and hopefully run some experiments on reality, we will eventually be able to find what the good diet is and why. But right now, there is some debate about what.
Yeah, there's space figuring it out, but I think there is a lot of like there's you can still know, let's say on the aggregate or statistically. Like the ice cream. I saw this joke on where the ice cream pizza diet, where you eat cold ice cream and hot pizza, but not at the same time. And then it takes energy for your body to regulate the temperatures. And so he had a whole like list of calculations.
I've seen this one. It came in an old book about mathematicians' jokes, and it was the cold whiskey diet. And if you drink whiskey at 0 degrees, like with an ice cube in it, then you know how many calories you're getting from the alcohol, and you know how many calories it takes to raise the alcohol from 0 to body temperature. And so in theory, you can have a negative sum equation. In practice, it doesn't work. They tried it. It doesn't work because they tried it.
It obviously doesn't work, and you could probably figure out. I don't know why.
I'd say there's probably heat loss to the system. Like your body are constantly leaking and gaining heat and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Like there's some math involved and stuff. Like it's probably a very simple calculation, but I haven't looked it up. But we know that one doesn't work, right? Like that one is the pizza ice cream diet is, let's say, like one of the worst diets that there exists. And then you have something like keto, or eating more fruits and vegetables, or not eating sugars, let's say, which would be much higher, like on much better on that spectrum. And so there is, like, I think there is, like, you do trust, like, we do know stuff, and you can trust the science up to a certain point for sure. And then there's going to be other people that think that, hey, no, we've done a bunch of experiments, these things are right, these things are not right. And then, everybody's got, you got all these like diet gurus and stuff. And there it becomes a lot more like, I don't know, like, I don't really trust them, but I don't know them. So maybe if I did do the research and I would know it, then I would.
Right. So one option is to give my power away. So I give my power. Daniel knows stuff. I'm going to just be like, whatever Daniel says goes, because Daniel knows stuff. I can't tell for myself. Daniel's already done the research. Daniel knows stuff. And so whatever Daniel says is good for me. And I will just do what he says. Oh no, this is dangerous.
Yeah, like this would be like the guru method. Like, I don't know spirituality, right. I don't know metaphysics, I don't know how mind works. I'm going to just do whatever someone else says.
Right. But so what I've done with my trust is I've gone, unless that person always agrees with what I was already thinking, which is sort of a tricky territory, I've gone, I don't trust my direct experience. I'm going to take my trust away from me and put it towards Daniel, and trust Daniel's direct experience more than my own.
And that's not good.
The
second you're denying your there's one thing making decisions, being like, I don't understand how this decision is made, or why it's right to me, but I'm going to do it anyway because I trust those people. But yeah, you can't deny your own lived experiences.
Right. So that's the unhealthy way to trust other people, right? I just trust them more directly than I trust myself. congratulations, that's great. Very unhealthy, gets you in dangerous situations, gets you in cults, gets you in trusting what your parents say even though you hate it. All sorts of, like, that's the small child version of it. The healthier way to do trust is what I want to trust myself in my ability to evaluate whether what Daniel says is truthful or useful or not truthful.
Yeah.
So I want to keep the trust pointed at myself. And then I want to calibrate my ability to point outwardly and be like, is what Daniel said true? Is what Daniel said direct knowing or not, or honest and true? And that way I get to keep me and my trust gets to stay. And what I can modulate is my ability to tell.
Yeah.
And very quickly I'll be like, I will find experts and I will be able to tell that they seem to know what they're doing, and therefore I can trust them. And these other ones don't seem to know what they're doing or don't seem to pass certain tests that I can run them through. So I am an Enneagram type, one of the Enneagram types. I'm a five wing 7, I think it is, or something like that. Anyway, one of the Enneagram types is the challenger. I'm really bad at Enneagram. I should have just said that. One of the Enneagram types is the challenger.
Oh, I checked that out. Yeah, it's interesting. We should go through that one.
One day we'll explore Enneagram. One of the Enneagram types is the challenger, and it likes to challenge people, challenge things like, why is that so? And so for a very long time, one of my methods of testing whether someone was an expert or not, or like actually skilled in their territory, was to challenge them, ask them the most difficult question I could find on their topic, or the challenging question about what they do or don't know. And this was just, I did this almost unconsciously. The good experts would meet the challenge and rise to it, be like, that's a great question, here's blah, blah, blah. The bad experts would be like, I'm angry at you for asking such uncomfortable questions. And I would very quickly know which ones were the good experts and which ones were the bad experts. Now, right. I grew up...
But you're using your internal trust to decide that somebody who rises to a challenge and tries to deal with...
Right. I've made a choice that that's trustworthy, right? Yeah. Now, you can just be good at answering questions and you can pass my tests without actually being a good human all around. But I grew up, I don't do that anymore. I do more complex systems, and I gained self-awareness around that pattern, and I got healthier with it. But that's what I used to do in order to evaluate whether other people are actually good experts or not. But with trust, what I want to do, like I said, I want to keep the trust pointed at myself, and I want to measure and calibrate my ability to tell if other people are telling the truth. Actually, there was a bug I ironed out just a few months ago. So this sort of puzzle has been like years and years and years for me solving the trust problem. I met someone who, and often one thing that worked for a while is I got really well calibrated on whether people trusted themselves. And if people trusted themselves, then I would be compassionate and understanding and like sort of take their word for it. So if someone trusts themselves and they say, I think there's this good or this bad thing in the world, I go, okay, if you trust yourself, I can tell you or not. And I got very good at telling people if people were exaggerating or lying or spreading a diversity of perspective. But and this worked really well right up until I met basically a delusional person who was deeply in their own narrative of the world hates me and that sort of thing. And I trusted them for quite a while. And their story of the world of like, these people were mean to me, and then these people took advantage of me. And then it took me about a week or two of hearing these stories and like going, oh, that's interesting. These people are, how interesting that you've had so much bad luck in a row, before I went, oh, I see what I've done. I've trusted this person's belief in their own story more than my own belief in what I think is going on. And I could have easily just anytime just taken a step back and been all like, something doesn't add up to me. But I was too busy trusting them in their own version of their experience, which was clearly leading them down an unfun path because they were encountering difficulty in the world. And so I had to fix up that bug that was like, oh, what I need to do is trust myself, listen to their story of their version of what's going on, but actually trust myself and my, is this sane sort of evaluation. I need to refer back to that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like not just trust of like lying, but also.
Well, this person was not lying. They were just living in a strongly biased version of reality and couldn't see truth.
Mm-hmm.
Like they couldn't see that they were part of the equation of what was going wrong with them. This person was sort of getting in trouble with various authorities, and they were pissing people off left, right, and center. And I was just fascinated at how much of a train wreck this person's experience was, that they would just keep having such bad luck. And this is to give one example. In the times of COVID, this person had asthma and decided they couldn't wear a mask because they had asthma. Now, in various moments during the pandemic, that will go well or go badly depending on how you flaunt that thing. Like if you sheepishly walk to the front of a store and say, hey, I can't wear a mask because I have asthma, can you get me something? They will probably happily comply. But if you barge into the store and walk around and start conversations with people without your mask on, you will probably not get along with society very well, which basically this person did the wrong one and wasn't well calibrated to society.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there is something of like if you have a belief that belief is there, like if you have a belief that lets you sort of, because let's say that the mask wearing, like let's say in people's minds, wearing a mask is a societal good, and so you're saying, oh, I can't contribute to it, or I'm going to like poison the well kind of situation a little bit. Right. And yeah, if you're gonna like sort of start flaunting that, then people just think you're being like, either you're just being an asshole, or you're trying to be better than everyone, or arrogant, or lying.
Now, this is just one example, and eventually
versus like signaling a little bit of shame, or signaling that you wish you could participate the way.
Right. Yeah, there's definitely a way, like if you wore the mask around your chin and said, sorry, my asthma is really bad today, chances are everyone would be like, oh yeah, I understand, just keep your distance. But if you don't wear a mask at all and you come up close to people and have intense conversations,
you gotta
made a mistake.
Yeah.
And this particular person lacks some self-awareness, and I had also made a mistake in this case of getting super interested in the train wreck that was this person's life.
But okay, so I do like that sometimes. Like it's like that drama where people just
right.
The problem is when it backfires and then you get sucked into it.
Right. So I was never quite sucked into it, but it did occupy a bunch of my time for a couple of weeks, and because I was trying to work out what was going on. I was trying to understand, and clearly, as I described, I had something wrong in my trust-based system, and this thing came along to sort of test me. Or what happened is it ended up testing me.
I think that's good. It's like taking this anthropological view almost, or like it's how I imagine like the psychotechnologists doing the research of, okay, like this thing is happening and I have no idea why or what it is. You gotta like figure out what's going on, and that shows you being able to figure it out and make moves in that space demonstrates how good you are at it. That being said, there is often the correct move is to not get involved.
Well, I over time, having gotten involved in that one, I realized that being interested in it was dangerous because it invited me to get more involved.
Yeah.
And the healthier thing to do would have been to not get involved at all. And so I since then made the decision not to get involved, and it was fascinating. So the day after I made the decision not to get involved, I was so bored because there was clearly some part of my system was like, we crave drama, we crave the internet, it gets the drama. And I was like, no, I've made a decision not to get involved in drama. I mean, like, don't go find another drama train to jump onto. I'm just
you already have an internal drama at that point, right? Like you're already having this internal dialogue, which itself is interesting.
Well, I was so bored, and then it was about 24 hours, and I was so bored, and then in the evening of that day, it just lightened up, and then everything was just fun. Everything was just completely fine. I didn't need drama anymore, but it was like a cold turkey detox. Yeah.
Yeah, there is something like this is bringing something up for me. This whole situation of it's easier to almost to learn psychology or like to learn actually how people work. Let's say psychology as in like the thing that psychology studies versus the field itself. To learn like what that is from people. I guess with drama, I don't know how to say this. Because there are some people that there is something, let's say, unhealthy or whatever about having all your insides on the outside.
Say that sentence again, having all your
insides on the outside.
Insides on the outside.
Yeah.
What do you mean by insides on the outside? Like
So
your interior drama, like your relationship with your own mental space is also happening in other people in relating to themselves and relating to you.
Yeah. So when people are constantly having traumas, they're playing out what they think, like their psychology, and they're not self-aware. Their psychology is on the outside. Like you can see what their psyche is, because they're just playing it out all the time. And so if you just watch those patterns, then you know what patterns are happening inside them. Somewhat, like there's always still like that space, but you can see a lot of it.
Right. And so there's a really interesting, possibly contentious belief here that consciousness is the same everywhere, or if you believe that there is some universal truthiness to a conscious experience, then the reasons why you might do something and the reasons why I might do the same thing should have some correlation between them. The reasons why a dog would do something and the reasons why a bird would do something and the reasons why every other human would do certain things should have some correlation to it. But there's a requirement of consciousness must have some pattern to it for all of those creatures to have a similarity.
I think that is true, but you don't even have to assume that here for this point to still be interesting.
Well, for other people to represent your own internal landscape, consciousness needs to be the same over there as it is over here in some way.
No, not necessarily, because we're still agents, and so we still have incentives, and we still have like systems.
Right. But the fabric that causes agency and causes agents to respond to incentives has to be the same here as over there.
Not necessarily, right? Like I don't know if you would say the consciousness of evolution is the same as the human consciousness, but like I think this is true. I think there's a parsimoniousness to this, but like technically speaking, right? Like incentives exist across systems, even if they're even like computers or like AI agents have incentives, even though I think like I wouldn't describe the consciousness field the same as ours. Like I don't think an AI now, I'm not talking AGI, I mean like actual like AlphaGo or something, is it like the way it responds is somewhat the way humans would respond. But like it is very similar, and you can look into it and see, oh, we did this thing because of this, and you could figure it out and get insights and all that stuff, even though I don't think people think AlphaGo is conscious. Yes, you don't have, I mean, I do agree. I think at the end of the day, this is the parsimonious explanation. But even if you don't agree with that, it doesn't matter, because even human psychology, like we all have the same brain more or less. So you get and if you see a person acting a certain way, you see the patterns, and you sort of you're able to create a frame in which this makes sense. And you do that with a bunch of people. And you do that, and you include yourself in that. That is you understanding the human psyche.
Right. And if you can predict the pattern, sort of thing.
Yeah, and people know this, and I think people that like quote unquote have their shit together tend to hide their shit a lot, because that's part of having your shit together. It's like hiding your dysfunctions. Not that I'm saying that's the healthy way to do it, but this is a thing that happens a lot. And and then it's hard to understand what is it, because also those are your incentives. Like you want to hide your weaknesses because people will judge you or take advantage of that, because we do live in a world where people play rough, let's say. And yeah, when you see these people that sort of have everything just right out there, you get to see what it's like to do that pattern. And it's even fun hanging out with these people sometimes, depending on how it goes, because like what the pattern ends badly, but there are advantages to it, and there are reasons why they're doing this.
I was definitely fascinated in how and why the pattern kept getting worse, or like it went badly, like the mask thing, followed by that experience for that person, followed by another bad experience. Like this person was just moving between hell and hell in experience. And I was just fascinated by how much, well, internally, the only way the person could model it was bad luck, how much bad luck this person was having, or how much the world just hated this person. Now, the world didn't hate this person. In fact, I saw an incredible number of people trying to move heaven and earth to allow this person their autonomy to make bad decisions. And this person just consistently made bad decisions.
See, and that's interesting, because it's like, especially like now I'm making much better decisions in life, but to be able to see that other side of the coin is really helpful. To be able to see someone that consistently makes bad decisions, you see the world in a different way. Like you're seeing almost like if it's tapestry, you get to see the other side of that. Not that, but I mean, obviously there is a cost to it, right? Because you do tend towards, you do tend to change towards people you hang out with, and then if you hang out with them, then the environment changes, and they're kind of poisoning the environment, right? Like there's a lot of good reasons why you shouldn't. People should do this.
There's an interesting.
There is also a positive side to it.
The Yoda principle. Yoda went to live on the evil planet because he was such a good Dagobah. Yeah.
Dagobah's evil?
To hide his great goodness in amongst the planet.
I didn't know this.
Evil and grime. Well, but then similarly you have to make it a more worldly example. The saints often are described as walking among the poor and the weak and the evil, like making friends with the evil parts of society.
That's how you transform it.
Right. I would agree with that.
But it's you got to be careful. It doesn't transform you.
Right.
And I think there's evil and there's poor and sick, which are a different category than people as well.
Yes.
But there is something similar in that they're in the space that they want to leave. Even if they don't necessarily know they want to leave.
From a Psychotechnologies perspective, light and darkness often attract each other in fascinating ways. Without necessarily understanding why. Occasionally people, on a human level, people get in relationship with a light person will find a relationship with a dark person. And somehow, I suspect that sometimes there's a psychological pattern of a light person will be like, everyone can be saved, everyone's a good person. And the dark person probably has the opposite. Everyone is bad, everyone is evil. And so when they meet, they're just trying to see which one's going to win by accident.
Yeah, there is something to that. There definitely is something to that. And I think it is important to actually test these ideas. Like, is everyone good? Is everyone bad? There's like, if you have
I would cautiously say from a Psychotechnologies perspective, what is that line? The line is something like, the man who believes he can change and the man who believes he never can change are both correct.
Yeah.
Which is you what you believe of the world, you will go out and find. And it is important to have healthy worldviews, because you will probably go out and find the world in healthy ways.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think it is important that you actually test this. So if you do believe like if you do believe that you can change, then like go test that. Go see what it means. Go nuance it out. What can you change? What can't you change? How does that work? Like learn about that and actually do that. And if you believe you can't change, then you don't have to worry about a lot of things actually, because I think a lot of people make decisions because they do things because they don't want to change or they don't want to lose touch with their roots or whatever. But if you don't believe that can happen, then you're kind of free. You just do whatever you want.
Right. I would, again, from a Psychotechnologies perspective, whichever one you believe, try and move towards it for a while. And either you will find that it's true and you'll be like, yep, every time I've checked, every time I go like I can't change, it turns out I can't change. Or you'll start getting sick and tired. You'll be like, I'm really sick and tired of being stuck in this way and I can't seem to change. And that's when the movement will come out of that frustration. And then you'll be like, what if I could change? And invite the possibility and maybe change your model, change your worldview.
Yeah.
But I would encourage anyone to try and become self-aware about what are your beliefs about the world.
Yeah. Trying to get explicit about things is,
and specifically just like write a list of them. Be like, I believe that politicians are stupid. Like, okay, all right, now I should probably just go.
That's an interesting one because I did used to believe that, and I don't anymore.
Turns out that they are complicated humans, often very intelligent because they're playing a very complex social game.
Yeah,
they're not stupid.
I didn't realize how complex politics was. And so when they say things, it's because I used to just take them at face value and be like, oh, they're saying this thing, like obviously this is incorrect. And I do think a bunch of them are stupid, or they don't think about the things that are important. But yeah, like some of them are very good at playing politics, but they think politics is like getting elected or something and not making the world better. Or a lot of them think it's signaling, like they want to like have the aesthetic of what they're doing is correct versus actually learning about how things work and then trying to engage based off of that.
This sort of links back to manifestation of yesterday's podcast. Number, where are we? We're in 13 today, so that was 12. If you believe, and I was saying yesterday with your planning self, right? Your planning self is the one that gets you to do certain things and goes like, so if you believe you're a healthy person, right? Your worldview, and if you have it too weak, it's not going to work. You really have to like strongly believe and wear it. If I'm the kind of person who's a healthy person, that means that I'm the kind of person who exercises, right? Which means that my planning self is going to get right on that. It's going to be like, well, we got to exercise today because I believe I'm a healthy person, right? That's sometimes our beliefs can propagate towards our actions. It doesn't just go the other way, where sometimes our actions, well, I keep exercising, so I guess that means I'm a healthy person, and I can form the worldview from the behavior. Yeah. But I can actually do that in reverse, right?
I do think the other way tends to be healthier, of like doing the things and then seeing what kind of person, or maybe this is just where I'm at now, but like doing the things and then seeing
what kind of person this makes me
from that. What?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm uncertain if one of them is better than the other. It seems like from a Psychotechnologies perspective, I want to be able to do both. I want to be able to use both methods.
Yeah, I find the other way tends to you have like this image of yourself. You're like, oh, this is the kind of person I am. You tend to, I don't know. It tends to be like you put yourself in a box, and then you get. At least for me, I think the fear I have around this is that I'll create this image for myself, and then I'll be in the box and realize I don't want to be in the box, and I don't like the things I have to do to stay in the box. And then I have to go through all this like backward stuff of getting out of that.
I think there's a landmark theory of be accountable to yourself, and then set goals, and then be scarishly pressuring yourself that stick to your word, I think is sort of the way that they phrase it.
Yeah, they stick to your word, but you could also just not promise things, and then you're doing that.
Right. But and I think there's
do, and then your word is good.
Right. And I think that they play with this where they say both stick to your word and then like promise that you can get to your dreams, and then they
Sarah,
create
how do you know what your dreams are? We were talking about this last time.
dreams. Oh yeah, dreams. Okay.
How do you know what your dreams are? And my dreams change over time. Like I'm doing things that like I wouldn't have necessarily even dared to have dreamed.
So I would cautiously talk around this topic because for most of my life, for me, being able to put words to my dreams is a very scary thing. It's very like, oh no, if you say it out loud, it may become true or false. But if you never say it out loud, you have the safety of never really knowing. Like when you get it in a good way, not knowing in both a good way and a bad way. Like when you get it, you can proudly accept that you got it. And when you don't get it, you don't have to suffer because you never really uttered those words out loud to admit that this is what you really cared about.
I have the other thing of like I'm scared someone will make fun of me.
Right. Daniel, your dreams are stupid.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, yeah, or they'll be like, no, that's just making fun of my dream.
Oh.
That one I don't mind.
Let me try rephrase that. Daniel, you are bad and wrong for wanting the things that
yes, exactly. That's the thing. You exactly said the thing that I was afraid you would say.
Oh no, yeah, right. And it sounds so silly when we reduce our fears to such a simple, like stupid sentence like you are bad and wrong for wanting the things that you want. But that's really like that can hit someone in the heart, that sentence.
Yeah. That does hit me in the heart.
There's there's an even deeper version of you are innately bad and wrong for wanting things in the ways that you want things because you want them.
because you goes back to me. It's like,
right,
it's like
right.
well, other people can have this dream, but you can't.
Right. It's there's like the you needs to really cut into yourself or whatever and be like the wrongness is in fact you. Like I don't know how to emphasize quite clearly that the you is the wrong part, but it's you is the wrong part.
yeah, that's the thing. Like, oh, you'll never be able to do that. Like, and you know what? Maybe I won't, and that's also okay. Like, it's okay to have dreams.
Right. But there's a you'll never be able to do that. That's like a grand sweeping you'll.
And you're bad for imagining it and wanting it. And
right. But
for trying to figure it out or think about it.
But there's this big wide sweeping you'll, like I'm pointing at everyone in the room when I say you'll never, and you could dodge that, right? You could be like, oh, he's talking to the guy next to me when he says,
yeah,
right. But I don't mean them, I mean you.
Yeah, that
is the bad and wrong one.
That is the worst, and it's mean when people do that, and I don't like
it. Yeah. Okay.
If they say like you'll never, like that's unrealistic.
You'll never amount to anything.
Yeah, like
no. What I mean is you will never amount to anything.
Yeah, like you can't do this. Like other people can dream this, but you are not allowed to. You're a bad person if you dream this. That's the worst. Because I don't mind. Yeah, like sometimes I have things that I want to. People are like, well, that's unrealistic. Like that's not gonna work. Like okay, fine. Like let's talk it out, right?
Right.
But yeah.
Okay, so dreams. So I have always, for a very long time I have had difficulty talking about my dreams because, as I said, my favorite metaphor about this is it's like looking into the sun. To talk about my dreams is like looking into the sun. It's just a little too bright. You know, as you do it, you can keep your eyes there, but you feel your eyes going like, this is uncomfortable.
Is it like waking up to like a bright light where you want to like maybe don't look at the light at first, look around, and then as your eyes get used to taking in more light, you can look closer to the source.
Right. So there are all these ways in which my psyche would like to sort of look nearby or like dance around the fact that my dreams are actually a really bright light. Like,
Yeah. All right, let's do this. Let's do this now. So you said don't look at your dreams because it's too bright.
well, this is sort of like the structure of my mental capacity. And I suspect sort of a human universal that looking at the things we care about is scary and uncomfortable in various ways.
I think it does take getting used to. Like this is true also with meaning.
Well, yeah. Essentially,
if you have a large amount of meaning all at once, it just, you can't handle it, right? You need to acclimate to it. It's the same thing with light.
Yes. I would say the same thing with any sensation. A large amount of it is very
shocking,
confronting, maybe.
Yeah, you have to acclimate to it. I do think looking at your dreams and pursuing this is the correct light level for humans in general. But just because it's the correct light level for humans doesn't mean that you should do it, right? Like,
doesn't mean that our psyche is set up to and prepared to just look at it. Bearing in mind that the number of times over our lifetime, from being a small child to now, that we attempted to like look straight at it and then it was wrong, or we got wrong, or we got rejected. And then so we were like, oh, I have to sort of go sideways at this. And then that got rejected too. And then over and over, our strategies in the world get rejected because.
Yeah. And then we start to close our eyes and get used to the darkness.
Yes. Well, there's an important thing here that other people, in the ways that other people have become uncomfortable to the light, they will project that onto you as well. So if you look directly at the light, they will distract you. They'll be like, oh, don't worry about that. You don't have to.
Yeah, because other people get also like, I think, get uncomfortable with that. It's also I noticed with emotions. I was watching BoJack Horseman, and which is also a whole show to talk about at some point. But there's this one scene where like someone's crying and BoJack doesn't know what to do, so he leaves. And I'm like, well, you don't need to do anything. Like, you just wait. Like, they're gonna stop crying eventually.
But so many humans don't know what to do in response to a strong emotion.
Yeah, and the thing is that, like, just on a minimum level, like the basic level is you don't actually have to do anything. It will end.
Right. It may feel like it won't, but it almost certainly will.
Yeah, and then so it winds up being that, actually I'm uncomfortable with the motion and I want to leave, and that's a choice everyone gets to make, I think. But I think it's important that you realize that that's the choice you're making. And not on the other thing. But I think this is distracting us from you being more in the presence of your dreams.
Yes, right. So this is now we're doing Psychotechnologies on me, and the topic is, what are my dreams? Is that the question,
or yeah, like, if I think ultimately we want to get to, like, I think last episode we did my dreams.
Sort of named a few things.
Yeah, maybe we should do your dreams this episode. Or if not all the way there, like, not to put pressure on you. So if not all the way there, at least being in that space where you can start to get acclimated to the light.
And I've done some things like this. I've worked on it many times over. The direct question is something like, what are my dreams?
Sure. Yeah. If you feel comfortable just jumping in there, then yeah.
Anyway, but direct knowing, right? I need to be able to point directly at the thing. That's
eventually, but it doesn't mean you have to do it once, right?
Right. So
I'm trying to give you space so that you don't hurt yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like my kid, for instance, for now he's 4 months and he's able to open his eyes and look around and lights, and they're fine. But right when he came out, he wasn't enjoying light, and now he enjoys light. Like, the computer monitors were too much for him, and now he likes watching TV.
Right. So dreams. What are my dreams? Take a slow, deep breath. Settle in. The things that I care about. So let me give words to what I'm doing. I'm listening to the sensation in my body and the stories that they tell about what I want, and what I'm like gripping onto is this is important. So there's something like I care about bringing people together. I care about there's some capacity in having people meet each other and connect that is super valuable to me. Like I've seen the outcomes many times, and they are boundless and priceless in their wealth of bringing people together. And so I find myself running groups. I find myself talking publicly. I find myself inviting conversation to bring people together into a shared knowing, because I very much care about it's hard to point to that thing. What is it? I care about people. And so I'm trying to listen to my body and what it says. I care about people feeling a sense of acceptance and understanding, and people getting what they want. I like to watch other people going like, yes, this is exactly the thing that I wanted. And relationally hanging out with people enables that possibility.
So sort of like a aha moment, or like where the eyes light up.
Yeah, so insights are a really valuable, really nice version of people getting what they want when they have an insight. Yes.
Interesting. It sounds like.
Does it sound true? Does it sound like?
Yeah, it sounds true and vulnerable at the same time. Like I think no one would say this in that way that didn't believe it.
Yeah, I recognize I don't often hang out in the vulnerable places. I sort of do all of these dancing around, but I also recognize when I recognize the direction that I'm avoiding from, or like the approach that I'm taking. And so I can drop down to sort of listening to what the body is storying in this moment. So it's not, I should probably give more words around this. It's not really, there isn't a loud voice in my body going blah blah blah, say this now. It's like sometimes it's called the soft still voice, that the body, there's some sort of knowing in the body, and I listen to it, and like I read off the body. I'm like, oh yeah, it's just trying to say this, or it's trying to do this. And again, from a psychotechnologies perspective, there's a concept called embodiment, which is, I don't think we've ever talked about yet. Have we? But what the heck is embodiment is a great question.
I've definitely used that term, but yeah. I don't think
right.
Wait, no, this is another deflection. I think you're deflecting from your dreams. I think you use psychotechnology to deflect from the vulnerability.
I'm like, it's an interesting and relevant topic to talk about. And
I'm just bringing awareness to the situation. Obviously,
right. Let me explain why embodiment is, in fact, the direction of my dreams. Right. Okay. So, with the thing that I see in the ability to read from the body is something like an alignment with myself. And if I could give that gift to other people, that they could listen to what they wanted clearer and align with themselves, then I see that as a very powerful way of getting the thing that I would like to see. I'd like to see everyone getting what they want, right? So if this is as a tool, if this tool, the embodiment tool, can help people get that, then that's what I want. This is like, we're still moving in the direction of my dream, even if it looks like
you're pushing it. You're talking about like that internal alignment, I guess, where you what does that feel like exactly?
What does internal alignment feel like?
Yeah.
Uh,
Or how do you know if you've done it?
So many ways to talk about this. Coming from like an improv perspective, sometimes I can let my mouth sort of produce words, or I can think things and then I can say the things I'm thinking, and that seems to be a cognition first approach. And I can just blah blah blah. This is what I was thinking, and then I can sort of try not to let the cognition go first, and I can try and let the body speak more about what it cares about. And there's a way in which the words feel like they come up through my body as opposed to coming down from my cognition. And the way in which I use my voice will be different. And
interesting. Wait, so this is one embodiment? I didn't think that, I didn't realize that this is how you're using it. So it's when it's coming, it's like a welling up from somewhere deep inside you that comes, that comes out in like speech or actions or something.
Right.
Interesting. Versus almost like making choices, like, oh, I have these thoughts, so I'm going to say them. Actually, not choices, but sometimes there'll be stuff up here that's happening, like it's like thoughts, and then I'm sharing my thoughts, versus it's coming from somewhere that I didn't know deep down.
Right. And ideally, I want my actions so top down and bottom up cognition, theory of cognition, right? Predictive processing model. These are just keywords. Internally, what it feels like is happening is that I can start from the top of the stack. My cognitive can be like, things are great, and then it can overlay over my experience, and then there's a gap, and then there's the bottom up stack, right? That's kind of at the same time, there's a bottom up stack that is like, here's how my body feels, followed by here's maybe the emotions might fall, and there's a gap, and then there's the top down system saying like, do these things. And there's the gap is constantly an argument between the bottom up and the top down system about what is the true nature of reality and which one I should be acting from in this moment. Right? Where I'd say the top of the stack is really in the like imagined perfect future, and the bottom of the stack is deeply connected to the past, right? And I'm sort of in the middle, playing out the version of like, this is the world we're in, and this is what I see, and this is what I notice. And we need to constantly be checking where the gap is and trying to align the past to the future, the past to our vision of the future, right?
Okay, I see how you're saying this.
And remember, if we go back to episode 4 of Metaphysical Anatomy, we talked about a timeline in the body, right?
Yeah. Like if I were to describe this, I would like saying like there's like the bottom chakras and then the top chakras, and there's almost always a disconnect between them, and so you're always like looking for that gap to connect the two, so that the information could just flow.
Right. So while I am not a perfectly aligned being from bottom to top, I can switch between top and bottom, and as to which one I am operating from, and what comes out is just like a slightly different version of stuff. And both sides of me are like, well, that's what was supposed to happen anyway. But
can you be both of them?
I try, and this is so let me do this now, right? So as I sit in the middle of them, what comes out is more like a hesitation, right? Because I'm trying to listen to both what my body wants to say and what my cognition wants to add. And so I end up in the middle with like a spread. And so I'm no, the answer is probably no, I'm not very good at it.
Okay, I don't think you're doing the technique right. All right, let's see if we can do this. This is what you want, the alignment, right? Like this is
right.
Right. Okay, so let me see if I can give this gift to you.
Ooh. Yes. alignment.
Yeah, because this might help fulfill all your dreams.
Like as I said those few sentences, I could feel myself switching in and out of it. Like there was a moment there, and then I lost it, and then.
Okay, so you're switching back and forth, and you're in the gap. What happens if you do nothing and just let the information go back up? Like the down information go up and up information go down, and just imagine it as like highways or parallel. I always imagine it as nerves. So it's like a tree, and then there's pathways up, pathways down, and you're like that ghost in there. Like you're the spirit of your nervous system, of your like spine, and the information is coming up and down, and you're just there to be with it. You're not there to do anything or enjoy it. You're there to enjoy it. It's very cynic.
So as I sit here, it feels like I watch one and then I watch the other. So I watch the bottom up, and then I switch to the top down one, and I just watch that one a bit. I can't seem to watch both.
Don't try to just enjoy it. If you're watching the up, then watch the up. If you watch it down, like just whatever's going on, just enjoy the experience. Someone else is deciding what you should be looking at right now. You're just enjoying that. And if you can, like notice how that works, or how that happens, but you don't have to if you don't want it, right? Like if you're feeling it, do it. If you're not feeling it, don't do it.
Like this is fine. I'm fine with the. I still feel like I switch between them. Like I'm not the unified.
Are you switching, or is it switching?
It switches, and then I can notice which I'm in, which is fine as well, I guess.
I mean, yes.
It's fine. I think feels like I would like to be in both, and then that's just not where I'm at.
Yeah. Okay, so you want to be in both. You should know to be able to notice residue. So when you're looking at one and you're looking at the other, you can only see one at a time, it seems. But you should still be able to have, there's a feeling. When you look at one, you have a feeling. And then when you look at the other, you have a feeling. That feeling should still be there. So the feeling should start to be able to associate. So when you're looking at the up, you have the feeling of down, you're looking at down, you're feeling up, and then the backgrounds, you can't necessarily merge the foregrounds, but you should be able to merge the backgrounds somewhat. I imagine this as the myelinated sheaths. This is imagining. I'm not saying this is what happened. This is the imagination technique I use.
It feels like there's still a distinction between the systems, but maybe
they're different systems. There should be distinctions. Stop fighting it.
Well, then, maybe I'm saddled with a desire to have them more close together than is practically possible. Maybe I render that desire. I don't know.
Do a check-in now, see how you feel about it. And just relax, like whatever comes up.
What is... It seems like there's still two separate systems.
How do you feel about that?
It's okay. It's fine. And like, here's the question: if it has to stay like this forever, is that okay? I'm still working on feeling okay about it. I'm not there yet.
I'm curious because I'm curious why you want them to be the same system. Like they might just be two different systems, or like you're like the sensory information coming in and then the decisions making coming out. Like your brain is doing a bunch of that processing, and your spine is also, but I think to want all the processing to happen not in your brain, to not have your brain's involvement in it, I think is involved in the things that it should be doing, I think is a mistake. I think it is a better system.
It's sort of like I want alignment across all of myself. And I'm not sure if that's a case of that's impossible, or if wanting it anyway is a good thing. And so just by wanting it, I'm going to keep moving in that direction. Or like, is this one of those universal illusions where we keep wanting alignment, like seeking on the spiritual path? I don't know. Are you familiar with seeking on the spiritual path?
No.
There's a we do something like we put meaning somewhere in the attainment of something, like in the attainment of spiritual goal. We're like, oh, if I read that book, if I understand that method, if I do that ritual, I will get it, right? And then in doing so, we separate ourselves from the good thing. We put it all the way over there, and then we have to travel the journey to go get it, and then we get it, and then we have it. And then once we have it, we do it again. We put it out there again, and we seek again. And that's like the spiritual journey is one of the spiritual journeys is learning not to put it out there, like we were talking about yesterday. Learning to keep it here. Like, oh, I already have the pure gold, and I'm heading in that direction because I just feel like it, without having to put the value thing out there and then go get it each time. Because continuing to put it out there continuously makes you a seeker, right? You always after it, but you never get it.
Yeah.
And so
because as soon as you get it, you just put it back out.
There's some sort of like suffering in the chase, because you have created the chase for yourself. And there's some sort of peace in arriving or recognition of arrival.
Yeah.
And deciding not to chase further. Mm-hmm. And there's the spiritual journey,
and recognizing being at peace is more helpful and is actually more.
Right. And there's a huge leg of the spiritual journey of turning that round and making that this realization. There's the gateless gate. Do you know the gateless gate?
No.
So the gateless gate is often drawn. No, never mind. The gateless gate is a book of Zen koans, and it is described that you travel the great journey to walk through the gateless gate, which is you go on your great spiritual path to walk through the gate, and then you turn around realizing there never was any gate and you never went anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
The gate disappears and you realize that you were always here.
Yeah.
But it does seem like you do need to travel the spiritual path to understand the gateless gate.
Yeah. 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 There is a spiritual path to, I guess, like being at peace with where you are, or being okay with how things are going.
And by all means, if you have never been down the spiritual path to get to the recognition of peace, you might need to go down it to do it. You should not try and shortcut it with just accept where you are right now. There's nowhere to go.
Because
in fact, there was a long way for me to go before I was ready to be like, oh, there was nowhere to go. But I needed to go that way to get there.
Yeah.
That conclusion.
Yeah.
Which is, it's very frustrating, the language around spirituality, because it can be confusing when you read all of those messages, like right at the start. You're like, there's nowhere to go. And yet there's also this spiritual journey. Like which one is true?
Yeah. Yeah. This is like a kind of friends you made along the way situation. Right, where you're doing the path. You're doing the path, and let's say they spoil the end, right? Like I'm just gonna spoil my Little Pony, right? First episode is they're going on an adventure, and then it turns out it's the friends they made along the way, and you know that going in, but you're still going on the path, because that insight doesn't happen unless
you go on the path, right?
And so you have to keep doing the journeys, even though it's
so. It feels like at the beginning of the path, if as you start the first step on the journey, if you are told the gateless gate, there is no gate, blah, 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 you have nowhere to go, you'll be like, that means nothing, right? You'll genuinely be like, what the.
I've seen people where they're like, oh, okay, so I'll just skip to the end, and I'm just okay with everything, and I'm better than everyone, and move on.
Right.
And
There's
then,
nothing spiritually narcissistic about that at all.
no, well, okay, so the first time that happened, someone said that, I got tricked. I'm like, oh wow, that's like impressive. I couldn't do that. Like I had to do the journey. And then I saw the way he acted, just with people and himself, and I'm like, oh, you don't understand this at all. You're just saying you're just saying the answer. Like you cheated off of someone to give the answer, but you don't know how to do the work.
So there is
yeah. Like
so,
let's see your work, right?
mm,
Because a lot of it comes down to it's like taking a test or whatever. You're taking calculus, right? It's not about the answer, it's about getting the answer.
that you have the skill that it takes to get to the answer. If you just if you look up the cheat sheet and write the answers on the page, you haven't actually learned calculus. Yes.
Yeah, like you can get there faster than I can, but you've missed the point.
Yes. So there's Trungpa, who is sort of the father of American Buddhism, described there's three schools of Buddhism, three main schools: Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. And he describes in one of his books that they're not actually separate schools, they're stepping stones on the journey. And each of the schools is concerned with one of the realizations. So Theravada is concerned with impermanence, Mahayana is concerned with suffering, and Vajrayana is concerned with no self, or the self-realization. And this is very interesting because most people see them as separate schools, or the three characteristics that you need to fully understand in order to see them in every moment and be free of the suffering caused by them. But there's this cool thing that people sometimes do where they jump straight to the third one and they go, I have no self, therefore the person who is me who said a rude thing to you and caused you to suffer, it doesn't exist. Therefore
I'm absolved of all sin. Yeah.
Therefore I am absolved of all sin. Right.
Yeah.
And so there is this amazing way in which you can shortcut straight to the third school and do that like bypass thing, and you haven't actually recognized the impermanence, the nature of suffering, and why you shouldn't be rude to people, and why you should still be, why everything is impermanent, why you should be kind to people on the way, and why it only matters to you, right? Big three realizations. But if you go straight to it only matters to you, you can just be a narcissist who rules the world and is mean to everyone and steps on everyone along the way. And it only matters to you anyway. And so you can cause a lot of pain, and everything that you care about is impermanent anyway, but you can miss that because it only matters to you.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I have seen
and that. There are a subset of people who do that. You get occasional cult leaders, occasional very strong narcissists who've gone straight to the no self one without the first two.
Yeah. Because I'll tell you, the no self breaks down very quickly, right? If you don't have, what is it? Okay, so for me, I know that it breaks down sometimes, and I don't know exactly where or why. Mm-hmm. You're saying that if you jump straight to no self without doing impermanence and understanding suffering. I kind of agree with that, because suffering will always bring you. Suffering proves that you exist. Right.
Because you can suffer, therefore you exist.
Yeah, because like it's or I guess whether or not you exist doesn't matter, but you exist and you're gonna make it stop. Right? Like if like it's like experiential stuff. Like if you want, people don't believe in experience or consciousness or something, it's very easy to prove it to them. Like, fine, let me just burn you real quick and you'll feel that pain and you'll know experience exists. And some reason people never let me do that test on them. But
slap into the face, then they have less time to object if you just slap them in the face.
Yeah, but that's just assaulting people for having opinions. I can't do that. Yeah, so I have to like get them to agree to the test first, which they never do. But yeah, because
they just don't want to know hard enough. They call themselves seekers. They don't even want to run the experiments.
Consciousness is an illusion, or let me prove it to you that it's not. No. Why not? Because it hurts, right? And what's hurting? And if you can't answer that question, like what is hurting, what is suffering, you at least, like, even if you have no self or whatever, but you still act like you do. And so you functionally still do, which means you're just in delusion. And then the impermanence, yeah, you kind of need that impermanence in order to deal with suffering. Otherwise, you don't realize that things change. As soon as you experience suffering, it becomes unbearable, because it will be that way forever.
Well, the nature of brains are that they motivate themselves sometimes by using suffering means.
Yeah.
Like we feel pain and we go, pain bad, in order to tell us to move our hand out of the fire, right? But and if the sensation had gone, kindly could you please remove your hand out of the fire because that's bad, we probably wouldn't jump as fast. We wouldn't jump our hand out of the fire. So we need some, there is some urgency to the phenomena of pain that tells us to act on it real quick.
Yeah, pain. Yeah, it's weird because you kind of do want to just immediately respond to pain without thinking about it, but also you don't want to do that because it's bad, because then you're just being bullied around by pain. And I guess that would be, I guess this whole school is what you're saying is what is suffering and how does it work and how do you relate to it, which would be a whole journey just for you to end up realizing, I guess, oh, it's just suffering, like don't worry about it too much, just let it go. But if you don't relate to it properly, then in the first place, then when you let it go, you're just gonna be in suffering. You're just gonna be miserable and cause misery around you.
And I did this. I went to investigate suffering by sitting in it for a bunch of time, and I got kind of depressed.
Yeah.
It took me a while, and I was like, oh, I see what's happening. This is suffering, and I don't like this. And then I stopped making myself depressed, and I felt way better.
Yeah, like that's the ultimate insight. Is like, oh, suffering sucks. I should not do it. Like, just stop doing it.
Right. Yeah, there was it took me a while of like, I need to go investigate suffering. What is this sensation?
Yeah,
like,
you have to know
sitting in it, being miserable for a little bit and going like, oh, that's suffering. I don't like that.
Yeah, and you have to know that, I think, through direct experience, because if you're just using corollaries, you're going to start throwing out a lot of stuff that's really important.
Right. And this is why direct knowing is important, because when we can directly know, we can draw strong conclusions from our experience.
And nuance it, and the more you know suffering, the more you can eliminate just the suffering and not the things that it's attached to. And suffering is often intertwined with meaning. And you need to be able to like separate, like sometimes it's very tedious where you're just separating this is suffering, this is meaning, this is suffering, this is meaning, and until you can like figure it out properly.
And sometimes suffering, like if I want to get up to the top of the mountain and I find the mountain very meaningful, I might have to suffer in some of the steps along the way to walk up the mountain. It's going to be a long trek. And so I can opt into that suffering in order to get the meaning. Right? I'm allowed to do that.
Well,
let me rephrase that.
You could do it that way, but
I can opt into some of the discomfort along the way and treat it not as suffering, but as meaningful discomfort in order to get to the top of the mountain.
Right. And you can not suffer from that, right? Like you can be in physical pain, but it's just pain, and pain is no pain, no gain, or pain is weakness leaving the body, or whatever, all those other millions of cliches. Like they're experiencing pain, but they're not really experiencing suffering. Although I think on some level there's some suffering, but like it's still pretty, like it's still very, like there's still just like that ratio of meaning to suffering is in a good space.
Psychotech Live. Woo! Thanks for listening.